I'm really delighted to be here today to talk about A Colourful Dose of Optimism. And I really, I wrote the book during lockdown, actually. I was being asked an awful lot by the media to talk about how colours could really help boost our mood and help uplift us during such challenging times. And I was really mindful of how important it was to help people understand that actually when we felt so out of control, and I know that certainly from my perspective, it was a scary time. It was a time where we all did feel out of control. And I wanted really to help everyone understand that colour is something that can really, that we can harness ourselves. It's a very powerful tool that we can all harness to try and help ourselves boost our mood, to feel better, to look better psychologically, to really tap into how colours can help us with anxiety, for instance. And it was a very anxious time. So I decided to actually write a book about it because I was writing so much about it. Everyone was asking me these questions and I thought, actually, it's a really important time to talk about this. And if I could help someone else in just a really small way, be it through wardrobes, homes, to feel better about their lives through colour, then I'd done a helpful job for people. So I started out by thinking, really, what we can do for ourselves is to really be able to understand how colour affects us. And I'm just going to start by talking a little bit about the science of colours from the point of view of how colours affect us visually. Now, we probably all know that when we look at a bright blue sky, the sun's out, that we actually do feel better. And when we see the stimulating colours, so when we look at the actual visual spectrum of light, light is colour, colour is light. And the hotter colours, so we start with red. Red has the longest wavelength of light, so it has a very standout impact on our eyes. And when we see colour and light, about 80% roughly goes towards our actual eyesight, but the other 20% can actually be absorbed into the glands in our brain, the hypothalamus gland, the pituitary gland, but namely the hypothalamus, and it's the gland of heat. And red can actually help to raise our metabolism, it can give us energy, it releases adrenaline, so it's quite an important colour. We associate red with stop signs, danger, passion, and also romance too, when we think about blood and our beating hearts. But red is that colour of energy. So if you're feeling tired and run down and you need some adrenaline, red is a really good colour to wear. Orange is what we call a secondary colour, because red is primary, orange is secondary, and it's a combination of joyful yellow and fiery red. And that orange red is really a hot colour, a stimulating colour. And orange really is, it's a very optimistic, happy colour. Frank Sinatra said it was the happiest colour. Well, I only discovered recently that actually his entire house was orange, which was probably very overly stimulating. But orange is the colour of sociability and adventure and daring. And it's a colour that certainly we associate with sunsets and that warmth. Orange is a warming colour. Pumpkins and that time of year when we go into autumn, the fires that we have in our homes. So orange really is a very warming colour, very friendly colour. When we come to yellow, on the visual spectrum, yellow is it's probably one of the hardest colours that we can see on our eyes. So it's really stimulating. When we see the sunlight, it is like being wrapped in a yellow hug for us. So it is a really important colour, always has been associated, I think, sunlight with that joy. That first daffodil that we see after a long, dark, cold winter here in the West, you know, when we go into the spring and we see those daffodils, it's that instant hit of joy and happiness. Yellow is very stimulating and very noticeable. And in our homes, certainly it's a colour to be very mindful of. So it might be a colour that's great to have in our studies, for instance, to really encourage us to get mentally creative. And in children's playrooms, it's also a great colour. But to sleep in lots of yellow would be very overly stimulating mentally. So maybe accents of colour. When we go round the wheel, we come to green, and green is that colour that's midway on the colour spectrum, and it's very restful on our eyes. So we start coming into the calming colours, the cooler colours. And green is that colour that when we see the first shoots in spring, it's that real sense of hope and renewal, and how we have the opportunity to really grasp new beginnings. And it's a harmonious colour. The only colour really, the only shade I would say of green that is more stimulating than a lot of the greens would be lime, because it has a lot of yellow in it, and lime does tend to be on the more stimulating side, coming round the wheel. So then we move into blue, and blue is the opposite really to red, in that blue helps to release the calming hormones. So for anxiety, feeling stressed, blue is a wonderful colour to really help us feel less anxious and calmer. And when we look at a blue sky, it has a restful effect visually on our eyesight. When we go on holiday and we look at the blue sky and the blue seas, blue is voted the world's favourite colour year after year. Maybe it's because our planet is surrounded by so much blue that we feel it's that trust and reliability, that we always know that after a grey sky and lots of rain and bad weather, that blue sky will always return. But blue is associated with trust and a sense of reliability too. When we move around to purple, purple is another very cool, calming colour, the colour of mediation, a great colour for meditation. It is inspiring, it is creative, and it's very spiritual. It is the highest, it's the crown chakra, and it's very much about leading in a really inspiring, innovative way. So when we talk all about the colours of the spectrum, pink is, it's not on the colour wheel, but it is a tint of red predominantly, so seen more as the cooler colour. But if you add more blue to pink, it becomes very strong magenta and fuchsia, a very, very popular fashion choice at the moment. Everyone's talking about pink, and I love that, because pink is such a great representation of love and compassion and kindness. And I think that this year in particular, pink has really come into its own, and it's to me, it has no boundaries. Pink, it is something that everybody can wear or use in their own way, and experiments have been done on pink. There's a colour called Baker Miller pink that was part of an experiment done in America for prisoners as they came in to prisons very anxious, very aggressive, and put in red rooms, and they became very angry very quickly. And in this particular shade of pink, it was noted that actually people calmed down very quickly, and so it became known as a specific shade, Baker Miller pink. So there's experiments that have been done on colours, and blue is one of those colours that there has been an awful lot about blue and how blue can help us. Experiments done in Japan, for instance, on the railways to try and help decrease the level of suicides, that was done some years ago, and the results were phenomenal to start with. And actually over the years, as they've gone into it more, there were other things that affected the results, like barriers were put in, but changing the fluorescent white lights to blue, they reckoned about 13%, helped about 13% in the overall experiment to actually decrease the amount of suicide. So we have to look at the importance of colour and how we can make it conscious in our worlds. I wrote a Colourful Dose of Optimism to try and help people understand their own colour palettes and to find their own happy colours, what I would call their own colour prescription, because there were so many doses of vaccine and doses of COVID, and it was all sort of around the medical side and sort of scary stuff that we were being given and absorbing into ourselves, into our beings. And I thought, well, a Colourful Dose of Optimism is something maybe that we can embrace for ourselves, to find our happy colours, to find our own colour prescription with our own colour palettes, and then to be able to prescribe those doses of colours that we need for any given moment on any day, because we are all individual. So it's all about what we might need on any given day, what suits us primarily, and then how we use those colours, whether we colour combine, whether we wear lots of one colour, whether we need more than one colour to balance us, and how we use that in our world and in our fashion. So I started the book with what I hope is an easy step-by-step guide for everybody to discover their own colour palette. Now, when I talk about a colour palette, it's about the 4 seasons, which is what I teach at the London College of Style. I've been teaching there for 7 years. And it's what I learned myself, how to work with colour analysis based on the 4 seasons. The 4 seasons, certainly in the West, and how they change are very relatable to our own palettes for our wardrobes that suit our own genetic colouring too. And it's sort of, to me, the most easy way to understand colour analysis. But we are all unique and individual. So within each palette, we will all have stronger, lighter, paler, more intense colours and shades within each palette. And it will also be a matter of personal choice as to how we use those colours in our everyday world and for how we might be feeling every day. So in order to do that, I did a step-by-step guide as to questions as to whether you fall into the warm seasonal categories of spring and autumn, the warmer skin tones, the yellow golden based skin tones, or whether you fall into the cooler categories of the blue based skin tones. Now, spring is the clear, bright, warm palette. And if I can show you all an example of a spring fan, this is the spring fan. And predominantly the spring fan, well, it is bright and it is warm. And I've also, within the step-by-step guides to how to find your colour palette, talked about personality, because personality is very important for each of us to, with our own authentic selves, really understand how these colours reflect and project our own stories about who we are. And the spring personality is the communicator. Spring is the pioneer. Spring likes change. Spring is that person that tends to have a lot of friends, does a lot of chatting, likes to be very sociable in company, is very good at going out and having fun, but also closing the door and taking some time to themselves. And also likes to take on lots and lots of projects and can often take on too many projects. That is very spring. So a spring personality is more outgoing and actually therefore will enjoy wearing their bright palette. Now, one spring may well be very different to another from the point of view that one spring might enjoy being head to toe in a bright red trouser suit and another might just enjoy wearing a red shirt with a neutral jacket or a top or trousers. And we have to take into account the neutrals. I've also talked about neutrals and how you your wardrobe around neutrals. They're very important because particularly as we go into the cooler months, neutrals play a stronger part in our palettes. And for someone who's in the spring, they have a bright palette. So sometimes we really need those neutrals. They're very important. They're very grounding neutrals and protective too. The spring palette doesn't have black in it. It has some very nice darker greys and dark blues and some stones. So there's an awful lot of choices here. And as you can see, all the different shades of the spring fan. As we move through the other warmer season, we have autumn. Autumn is the richer, more muted, earthy. So when we talk about spring in this country, in the UK, we know that there are lots of bright colours that appear after the winter. And when autumn comes, they're very rich and they're very earthy and they're very golden. And again, this is another warm yellow golden skin base like spring, but it is richer and probably darker too, from the point of view that the skin tans quite deeply a golden colour. It has the ability to do that. Spring also tans a golden colour, but spring skins also have the ability to blush and flush, which the other seasons don't. And that's part of the spring personality running very fast, and the blood, the hemoglobin often ends up on the cheeks. So autumn is this rich earthy palette with lots of browns, the golds. Orange is a very key colour for the autumns, rather than the pinks and the teals. And then we go around here, and again, we have the neutrals here. But because autumn's got a lot of browns, they're very grounding for autumns. The autumn personality is what we would term the A-type. So someone who is very driven and will take on a project that spring would take on, but finish it. So autumn will stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning, probably, to get that project finished. Autumn is the natural leader and is very good at delegating, but likes to be in charge of things. So you can probably possibly understand that there is going to be combinations of personality. And again, that will have an impact on how you wear your own colors within your genetic palette. And by that, I mean the colors that suit you best up against your skin tone. And I have gone into that in the book, how to color drape and how to work that out for yourselves. So it's a real DIY of doing it yourself. And when we go into the cooler seasons, you can see that predominantly this is a blue and a pink fan. And this is the palette for the summers. And summers are incredible diplomats. They like to or prefer to work behind the scenes. They're very creative and wonderful with their hands. And they also tend to have one-on-one friendships rather than big groups of friends. And they make incredible listeners, but they tend to be more introverted. So there isn't an awful lot of red in the summer palette. It's much more on the pinks and the purples. And like summer in this country, I always liken summer to having like talcum powder dusted over the landscape. The summer palette is quite pastel based and delicate and soft, and very much goes with the colouring of the summer, which tends to be lighter. The skin tone tends to be lighter, and the hair colour tends to be quite an ashy colour rather than gold like the warmer skin tones. The springs and autumns, you can be very light, right the way through to very dark skin tones, by the way, but the summer tends to be more on the lighter side of things, as you can see that it's quite a light, delicate palette. When we go into winter, this is the seasonal palette that can wear black really, really well up against the face without being detrimental. And a lot of the colours here do have black behind them. The winter colouring is either, well, it's very dramatic. So it's either can be very pale or very dark. So we don't have any warmth in this palette. It's all blue based. Sometimes you might be able to see blue veins in your skin if you are a true winter. And the real key here is to how black looks up against your face, not away from it, but up against it, and whether it's flattering. Winter suits the fuchsias and the really strong cobalt blues, the forest greens. And we don't have the neutrals here because winter already has black in the palette, brilliant white, but winters really only need two colors because of the drama. And winter is the analyst, the perfectionist. Winter is that person that is able to shut the door and spend a lot of time alone and creating, and they don't like to be disturbed. And that's an amazing gift, really, to be able to spend a lot of time alone, being able to actually get things done. So this is very much the winter palette. So with every palette, there is a genetic undertone and there is a personality. And when you put this all together, there is the palette that you really feel resonates with you on an energetic level and on a genetic level too. So when you put all that together and you find your perfect prescription that really makes you happy, the point really is that creating a wardrobe, and maybe your interiors too, that actually makes you feel in harmony with yourself. And this is about color harmony, that happiness that you get when you feel that you're in your joyful zone. Somebody asked me about, I saw one of the questions come up about culture, and it's really important. It's one of the things that, again, that I teach my students is we have to be mindful of culture, because when I'm about to talk about color psychology, color has different meanings all over the world. You know, flags of each country represent colors that we associate with that culture, that country. We've just had over here in the UK the Platinum Jubilee, you know, and the flags, the colors, they were everywhere, and everybody felt that that was part of the celebration. So we have to be mindful of how the colors represent different countries, different cultures, and how we use them and wear them. For instance, over in the West, white is a color that people see as innocent and pure to get married in. But over in certain parts of the East, it can have very different and not positive connotations in the way that it does for us. Red is a color that a lot of people get married in the East. So we have to look at color culturally, but at the same time, universally, we can all tap into nature and those benefits that colors can give us. So when I talk about the psychology of color in the book, it's all about the doses of certain colors that can help you every day. And as I've already talked about how they affect us from a visual sense, we also need to understand that emotionally, we react to certain colors, consciously, subconsciously, but we might all have favorite colors. So my favorite color is orange, but any of you might have a favorite color that is very different to mine. And often we have favorite colors because they represent times in our lives where we've been particularly happy. So maybe it's the color of a bedroom that we stayed in when we were on holiday at a certain time that was very happy for us. One of the colors that I find people have a problem with tends to be green, because a lot of school uniforms were green. Mine was green, but I was lucky. I primarily had a very happy time at school, so I don't have that sense of, oh, green makes me feel uncomfortable. But I do get green as an issue, but there are so many shades of green. If you just happen to look back at, let's say, the spring palette, how many different shades of green there are in this palette. So it would be a shame for me as a color expert to say to someone, well, don't ever wear green then. I would say, I understand your emotional issue with green, but let's look at a different shade and maybe just start to wear it in a small way. Because when people are stepping into a color zone for the first time, it's about helping someone to feel comfortable within this new zone. So I always advise people to start small, and then if they love that color and they get complimented and it makes them feel good and they smile when they see themselves in it, then actually spend more money, go and buy a bigger piece for your wardrobe, spend the money on something that you know you're going to like. But to start with, experiment and see how you actually feel. Yellow is a really interesting color, because certainly in fashion, where I find so many people love to wear black, very few people really resonate with yellow. It's become a much bigger color in fashion, and I'm so thrilled that it has, because it's such an important color to miss out on. But yellow, of course, is the color of the solar plexus and self-love. And I think stepping into yellow and the power of yellow is really important. And even if it's only in a very small way, just maybe starting off with a cami top, or maybe in a pattern for a scarf, or in a tie, or in a softer shade of yellow. People have an issue with, what is my shade? So from the book, I would just tell you how you can get your shades. But from your color palette and understanding your color prescription, and then dipping in and out of it for the color psychology part. Do you need red because you're feeling exhausted, and maybe you're going for a job interview and you need to show that you are driven and you've got the energy to do it and you're passionate about the subject? Maybe you would combine red with blue, for instance, to show that you are reliable and trustworthy and a good communicator. Throat chakra, good communication with blue. So maybe you would want to wear blue and red to a job interview, thinking about that mindfully, and also blue would help to keep you in a calmer zone and balance the stimulation of red. Maybe you're going to be going to an event this summer. Maybe you're going to a wedding and you want to feel happy and balanced, and maybe you would think of different shades of green. Maybe in a tonal outfit, you would choose to go lighter, brighter on the top and then go into a darker shade, thereby enhancing and embracing all those different properties of green and the different shades in a tonal look. Maybe you'd like to clash a color and put bright red with fuchsia pink, which is a great fashion look at the moment. Yes, it'll get you noticed, but goodness me, it's going to actually give you loads of energy and make you feel probably really alive and happy. But it might be that you're in a quieter zone, and maybe you would prefer the more burgundy reds with a pastel shade of pink. So you still get the benefits of two, but in a way that really suits you. So I've taken the book into wardrobes, so to understand how to detox your wardrobe, clear it, and rebuild it again. Because a sustainable wardrobe, there's lots to say about sustainability, but actually if you have the right colors in your wardrobe, not only will it give you joy every day that you've opened up your wardrobe and just seen all those colors that suit you. None of this, I've got nothing to wear, because they're all there for you to choose for whatever you're doing that day and to suit your mood. Those colors will save you a fortune going forward, because they will always suit you. They're not going to go out of fashion. You can add the fashionable bits in as it comes. That really belongs to your palette. But building a wardrobe up that just suits you is really a really powerful way to dress, very economical, and knowing that the colors that are there are always going to be a part of you. So I've gone into that and how you put all the different colors together. And then I've also talked about workwear and how you might want to wear different colors for different professions, and also by season, how the colours you in your own palette work really well in the corporate world and the media world and any other world that you might be in. I've also talked about the comfort zone, so leisure wear, which has become a really big market, but not to just default into the grey zone all the time, the grey tracksuit, actually how you can use colour to keep you in balance with yourself when you're at home or wearing your leisure wear. And also then finally taking colour into your home. So once you know your colour palette, you might start to see colours around you differently. How might you use different rooms in your house for yourself and your family or whoever you live with? How you might want to stimulate in certain areas because you like to have dinner in your kitchen, in your breakfast room, and lots of stimulating chat. You might want to consider one of the hotter colours. And equally in a bedroom and a bathroom, how you really want to get into a calmer zone and use all those beautiful blues and greens and maybe some of the pinks too, to help yourself calm down at the end of the day. So I've taken it into the home by room and also by your own palette. So at the end of the book, you will know your colour palette and how to use it for your lifestyle. Right at the very beginning of the book, once you have discovered your palette, on a page all on its own is a box. Now, that box gives you your colour prescription images, a website link that will take you by season, by page, into some images of colours to suit you. So by each different colour, we start with red and we go down through the rainbow spectrum and we end up with the neutrals. And you will get 3 shades of each to give you an idea as to what those colours mean, because this is a guide. I know that none of you are going to take this shopping. I don't want you to. It's big, you know, it's clumsy. I want you to be able to just tip into it to get your top tips of whatever you need. But once you've read this and you understand your palette, you can go to the website and have a look. You can see an example of colour in your home. You can also see makeup colours for those of you who want to. And at the bottom of each page, you have an option for a one-off fee in US dollars of 25 US to download your own colour app by season. Now, this colour app will have over 100 shades in your best colours to wear for your wardrobe, take into your home, wherever you choose, even to think about in your garden, if there are particular colours that you like, how you might use those shades to really suit you and maybe others in your family too that fall into the same category, or maybe they're different, and how you work those colours together. But this app is a digital app, and basically it will go onto your phone and you will keep this forever. So wherever you are in the world, whenever you need to tap into your personal colour palette that belongs to you, you will have it there forever. So it's just something that I thought would be a really great way for everyone to be able to understand their palette, understand the psychology of the colours and how they can really benefit you, and then have them on your phone so that there might be a certain occasion that you want to go shopping for, an event like a wedding or a party, and you can just go to those shades within your palette that you love, take them shopping, and it's going to make shopping so much easier because so many people are frightened of shopping. And I've talked about it again in the book to try and help you understand how to shop well online and in person. But when you've got your palette in front of you, it's going to make things an awful lot easier and take the stress out of it. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I hope I've given everyone the kind of the concept of the book and how really I wanted it to be able to be a step-by-step DIY guide for everyone who can't afford to go and see colour consultants, or maybe would like to dip into it and then maybe go and see a colour consultant if they wanted to. But in the world we're in now, it's kind of helping people for self-care, to be able to do things for ourselves, I think is really important. And that was my reasoning for writing the book and for helping people to really do it themselves and to find their own happy place with colours in their own world. So I hope you've enjoyed hearing me talk. My students would say I can talk forever about colour, and they're quite right. I'm very passionate about it, and I could talk about it forever, but I'm on a time scale tonight, and I know that hopefully some of you would like to ask me some questions so we can open it up across the board and have a chat about colour. So over to you guys. Well, that's really interesting, isn't it? I think the thing is that we have, we use color for uniforms. I think that's one of the ways that we can really understand how color is used to have that sort of impact in uniforms. That navy blue, black is used an awful lot, certainly for policing and, for different authority figures. I think it's quite interesting that we see how color is used in that way, whether we actually notice it subconsciously or consciously. It's that discipline, that authority. And how color is used, for instance, like yellow being that visual stimulator that we notice on our eyes so fast, that they're used on people who go out cycling so that we see them on the road, on the railways, certainly over here. They're high-vis jackets, they're yellow, road cones, red. So when we think about those colors, they are being used automatically to give us signals. But I suppose, when we think about colors in branding as well, how colors are used, companies spend a lot of time and money thinking about how they can use colors to really tell their own story about the products that they're selling. Certainly, I know when we're talking about uniforms and what people are wearing, going into hospitals and clinics, the colors tend to be greens and blues. Again, this calming aspect, because it's a place that we all tend to feel quite anxious in. So when you start to think about colors in a different way and become kind of conscious of what people are doing with them, you start to notice the signs and how they're being used in our world to make us take notice, or for us to feel that sense of authority. And I think culturally, when we talk about it, colors are used in different ways. I think the genetics of all of us in different cultures are going to be different as well. Personalities are going to be different because we're all individual. And color analysis is based on the genetics of the warm or the cool skin tone, but we are each very individual in our own personalities and how we choose to use color. But of course, growing up in a certain culture is going to have an influence on how we associate, or how color symbolizes in our world, of course. It's, yeah, the calming colors, really. I mean, the thing is that the blues, the cooler greens, the blues going into the purples, I always think of blue really as the calmer, because I think that it is, it's one of those colors. It's very, very popular. So it's an easy color to associate with blue because everybody seems to love it. And there are lots of shades of blue, but generally blue is a cool color. So it is that calming sense. And also, I think when we think about blue and the sea and the fluidity of listening to the waves, watching the sea, when we all just sit there and stare at it, it's that sense of fluidity and calmness that we all get through that on an emotional level that really resonates, I think, with a lot of people all around the world. So I do think that blue has that sense, and also because as a visual wavelength of light, it is more restful on our eyes. If you put all that together, I think that blue is a very good color to incorporate. But of course, navy blue is going to be much more authoritative, conservative, traditional than turquoise, which is going to be brighter and lighter and more uplifting. But you can wear them together. You could put turquoise, and there's a shade of turquoise for everyone, maybe on the top half, and then maybe go into navy blue or have a navy blue jacket or a suit. So thereby you're combining those different aspects of blue in one look. And certainly in our homes, blue is used so often in the home, and it's a wonderful color to help people sleep in, stay restful in. But also, don't forget, there can be very, very cool icy blues that some people go into a room and go, oh, this is really a cold room, particularly a room if it's very big, can feel very cold. So then would you think about maybe putting some orange in there or some red to warm things up a bit? And that's about balance, and that's about personality too, and how you actually want, what you want that room to do, what you want the message of that room, the whole energy and the sense of what that room is doing for you. Do you want it to cool you down and stay in that zone? Or do you want to actually bring some warmth in? The size of the room can make a big difference as well, but I think we are all kind of, particularly during COVID, we were all looking around our houses and thinking, what can I do to change things and make things, a better place to live in, rather than moving homes. Going out in nature, it was another area that we were all told to go and sit outside in green parks. Well, green, again, another very restful color on our eyes. So, those cooler shades of green, they're really fabulous. Green, it also helps to increase productivity in the workplace. So just having green plants around us is very healthy. And they've done science studies on green, that if you just look at green for a period of time before you do a task, it can actually increase your productivity. Well, I find that fascinating. So just using colors in that way to help keep us feeling in control and calmer, I think that's a great way to think about how we can harness those colors in our world for ourselves. I love astrology. I lived in Hong Kong for a bit, and I studied astrology when I lived out there, and because it's something I'd always wanted to do, and I got a diploma in it, and I just found it so fascinating, and love doing birth charts for children in particular, being able to help people understand the sort of this blueprint. And I think actually the blueprint of who we are when we come onto the planet is very much a part of how I feel we fit into our own authentic selves with colors. Talking about the planets, I obviously associate the sun with great yellow sunshine, and that to me, the sun is such an important planet, because the sun really represents the essence of who we are in astrology. It's that real stepping into our own power. And then when you think about the darker side of the moon, for instance, moon is always our emotions, and we often need those darker colors, particularly if we are going through times of real difficulties emotionally. If someone needs those colors to feel protected and to hide their own emotions, that's their own healing process. So the darker side of the moon always represents to me that darker side of the emotions that need protecting. And we all need that sometimes. So this isn't all about, always being, super, super colorful. Color is in itself a massive subject. So, all colors have their place, and which is why I talked about the neutrals. But taking it back to Mars, of course, the red planet. Yeah, I always associate Mars with that kind of energy and drive that the red Martian influence has when Mars comes along, in a chart, and when it's affecting us as a planet. It's always kind of that go, go, go. And that's what red is. It's all about the energy and the passion. So I love that. But the blueprint, again, is kind of, it's about who we are and the development of ourselves. And I often work with people who've moved out of their natural palette into a different palette. Now, maybe that might be because of emotional stuff. It often is. It's through trauma, illness, and loss, something that all of us as human beings go through at some point in time. And we can end up not being the best of who we are. We lose ourselves. And I also see a lot of that, particularly with people children have left home, and they're kind of like, oh, what am I going to do now? I've got to sort of reinvent myself in a different way, maybe. And it's these kind of times of change in our lives when we're ready to maybe embrace a different part of ourselves and maybe change, or maybe it really is just embracing who we are, but in a new way, looking at things differently. That I find it really helpful to understand our true colors, who we were really born to be, and stepping into that and owning our own power with confidence. And I talk a bit in the book about smiling and the power of smiling, whether it's false or real. It helps to release those happy endorphins. And I know that if I, want to meet new people, get people smiling on a dull day, I wear my yellow coat. I walk down the street in my yellow coat. Everybody smiles at me. And it is that sunshine effect. So the sun, yellow. So yes, astrology has very much influenced me in many ways. And I think probably in the most important ways to understand that we all have that element of tapping into our true selves. Astrology does that for us. It helps us learn about ourselves. And I feel the same about color and how we can really embrace color into our lives to really understand who we are and make the best of ourselves. And I think so much is about confidence and finding that confidence to know that we look great, that we feel great, that our energy is really balanced, and that we feel good in who we are. That's kind of, astrology is obviously more predictive in that sense, but color in a way has its own prediction because you can choose how you want to feel every day. So that in its own sense is very powerful, I think. How when we see light and color, it obviously is absorbed into our eyes, and we see our eyes adjust with the cones and the rods to the different wavelengths. And at the back of the eyes, the rods are what absorb the color, the colors and the light that go through into the brain and into the glands, and it affects us hormonally by, as I said, red is the longest wavelength. So it is the color we see first. So it gives us that sense of, whoa, stand out, take notice of it. So each wavelength has and can have an impact on us physiologically to differing degrees. And I guess it's also why, certainly in this country and certain other countries in Scandinavia, for instance, you know, with a lack of light that we go into, people end up having SAD, which is this, you know, feeling really low because they haven't got enough light. And that is all down to, obviously, you know, we're not seeing enough, we're not absorbing enough. And when we think of color in that way and how it can have that impact visually on us, how it helps affect us glandulally in our moods, if we can really think about that, how we can use the hotter colors to stimulate us and how we can use the calmer colors to really help get us in a calmer zone, even in a really a small way. It's still about us taking that responsibility and control for ourselves if we can. I was teaching this week at the London College of Style in an orange trouser suit, and I have to say that I met more people in my orange trouser suit. I had a taxi driver who'd never heard of a colour consultant. By the time he dropped me at Waterloo, he was off to buy some pink shorts, which was very funny. But literally, people were stopping me and going, "You've made me smile today." That's just like, and you know, at the end of the day, I was very kind of fizzy and, you know, quite slightly overly stimulated. I came home and I got changed and I went into a completely blue zone, and I sat down with a cup of tea and the paper, and I just sat there and I just actually felt really calm. But I needed to do that because I'd been very orange all day, and, you know, lots of energy about color teaching, and so I really needed to be in that blue zone. And I think that it's not just about the colors that we see, but it's also about the colors that we wear, the energy of the color and how that therefore affects us too. I think we all have our own preferences for colors, and it might well be that one person might feel very differently about wearing a color to another. And again, that's very individual, and I champion that. You know, I'm not saying one size fits all. We are all different, but it's really on that level of how color affects us. I'm sure it will be different for every individual, but that is the kind of visual effect that it can have on us. I think that's it's really key. I think our emotional attachments to colors can be very powerful, and I come across it a lot. It's also to do with, I think, about how you energetically feel in a color. And certainly for me, working with people, you know, I do see color as a real therapy. And certainly there are certain colors on certain people I can actually feel, you know, the energy, the vibration lifting or draining away when a color really doesn't suit someone. But what I find interesting, you know, my 20 years of doing this, what's so interesting is the body language when someone has a color put on them. You know, when it's in the wrong shade, it's a visual effect. You know, people have a shade put on them and they kind of move back. I had a student the other day and she didn't suit the really bright colors, and a bright color was put on and she moved away. Actually, it was on her, so she couldn't actually get away from it because we were all seeing it at the same time. She had a very visual reaction to the color. She didn't like it, it didn't suit her. Vibrationally, it was wrong. And she felt it, she saw it when she was looking in the mirror. And I always find that really fascinating because people will really get that when they see it and feel it. And that's my job, to kind of help them. And if people really do have issues with certain colors, again, it is all about a shade. It's like saying, Is there you know, a blue for everybody? Yes, there really is. There absolutely is. Now, it might be that it's on the cooler side of things, so it's going to have a lot more shades if you're a summer or a winter. But are there blues for the warmer springs and autumns? There absolutely are. So it's about finding your shade. So if you have a real issue with a color, you don't want to miss out on a whole spectrum. And orange is that part of that, by the way, because orange is very warm. So again, the cooler seasons, they're not going to favor wearing orange. But should they miss out on a whole spectrum of orange? No. So maybe wear it away from the face or in a pattern with the cooler colors and find your shade. So I think I talked earlier about the bright red and the bright pink, you know, having that effect of walking out and everyone noticing you. And possibly if you're having a day when you feel that's the impact you want to have, great. Or if you're more outgoing and you kind of want that standout, great. But you might not want that at all. You might not be having that kind of day where you don't want people to notice you in that way, and you want to feel very comfortable in what you're wearing and what you're doing. So the shades then would be different. So each palette has their own shades and a comfort zone, a happy place. And so really it is about finding your own personal palette and finding those shades that make you feel good for different days, for different emotions. And always start small with a new color. Do not feel like you have to say, oh, Jules has said in the book that I'm a bright red's my shade, and go out and literally bright red suit. You don't have to do that. Start very small with a small item. Accessories are very good for that. Starting off with scarves, starting off with ties, in a pattern, so it's not overwhelming, and see how you feel about it. And I think that when you do that, you can really sense how much you like a new color or not. And it's about stepping out of your comfort zone, you know, to an extent, and seeing how you feel about it. I'm not trying to change anybody, saying, you know, you should be this person. I'm not trying to make someone extrovert, someone introvert. It's not about that. It's really about finding your own comfort zone within color. And one day it might be stronger than others, but when you have your own palette and you have all your shades, that's up to you. And the shades are very important. You know, do they have a tint behind them? Do they have black behind them? Do they have white behind them? Are they primary, yellow based? And that's about what they do to you here and how you feel energetically. So you put that all together and you find your own happy place. So it is about, you know, the way that I learned color going back to Hippocrates. You know, when you look at the humors and how incredible that, you know, the whole putting the humors together and how the bodily fluids operate in each of us, and how that then influences the way our skin, the undertone of our skin, and how that then works with our personality, taking it into the psychology of the colors and the personality side of it. I thought, to me, when I learned about color, I thought it was just going to be about putting drapes on. And I was very kind of, you know, I wanted to be a stylist, and I thought, oh, I'll just get the color done quickly and I'll move on, add the color in, that'll be great. And I was learning all about color and thinking, this is phenomenal. I can't believe that there is so much depth to this. And it goes back right the way to Hippocrates and how this all is put together. And those great women, you know, those female inspirational American leaders of color, you know, that brought color over into this country, and how Bernice Kettner, she put those colors with Suzanne Cagle. They really developed it and used the whole Hippocrates viewpoint and all his incredible experiments together and made it this holistic color system. And I just really resonated with it. I remember doing my case study number 5, and I thought I'd whiz through my 20 case studies till I could finish the whole thing and get on with my styling. And case study number 5, and I remember it so vividly because it was my light bulb moment when I actually saw this lady just light up every time the right shade went on. And I always use the 4 shades as I go through each color so that you can see visually what's going on with the skin and the energy of the person. And the smile that came up every time she had the right shade on was so powerful. And then tying it in with her personality, it just, to me, that was it. It was like, that's it. I want to do color and I will do the styling. And that is what I did. So I did the whole thing, and I did all of it for quite some time until I wrote my first book, How Not to Wear Black, which was to try and help people understand which palette resonated with them the most, and who could wear the certain shades, and why it's not really, you know, being led by fashion. It's about being led by your own coloring, your own genetics, your own personality, and then fitting fashion into you rather than the other way around, which is what I saw so many wardrobes that just weren't being worn, you know, everything in it. And it was kind of, what a waste of money. And you're not, you know, looking your best and certainly not feeling your best. That's why I'm here. So the color was like a light bulb. And I have to say that my students say it pretty much every time when they see what I'm showing them. And everyone's individual. I haven't met these people before, so everyone's new to me. That light bulb moment, it is like a light goes on. And I think that on an energetic, vibrational level, if you can switch the light on for yourselves, you know, that's really exciting for me. And it's kind of, yeah, my healing aspect comes through when I know that I've helped somebody step into that authentic happiness for themselves. It's great. Yeah, certainly I look back and, well, yeah, I mean, certainly my hair color choices went very, very suspect, certainly in my teens. But actually, I do work with teenagers quite a lot. And it's, you know, I wish I'd known then all about the colors that I probably would have really helped me with jobs and emotions and relationships then. But it was all about experimentation. So I don't regret that. But actually, it can really help if you help someone step into their color palette at a young age. And actually, you know, one palette has so many different shades that actually, even if you're experimenting and going into different colors for different needs, different times and different ages in your own development, you know, if you can wear those shades that really suit you and really resonate with you, then you're doing, I think you're really then using your colors to the best of your ability throughout your life. So it is it's a really great thing to learn at a young age, but I think we all come to it when we're meant to come to it. Certainly I've worked with people who've never had their colors done, and when they come to me, you know, in their 50s, 60s and 70s, and it's like they feel invisible, you know, because our skin does, it does change, obviously, as we age. It fades for certain people depending on skin tones. But this invisible thing that I hear from a lot of people as we age is you know, it distresses me. And certainly I'm in that aging bracket too. And it's like, you know, why shouldn't we look good at any age? And I think it's really important that some people who come to me who haven't had their colors done actually end up feeling better as they age than they have done when they were younger, because they've discovered that level of self-confidence. Oh, someone's asking, it's a color palette. So it's like the palette. So if I was to put up that's a color palette. So we talk about a color palette belonging to a season. So a color palette, color season. So, you know, I think color, we will choose to wear certain colors at different times of our lives emotionally. So that is quite important too, that we can go through a red phase, we can go through a blue phase, or we can make it very conscious and understand why we're going through those phases and what we need at that time, and then step into maybe a different tone, a different color, that maybe we start to wear different colors together. And I've kind of touched on that in the book as to how we can really look at combining colors for different images, different projections, different stories, maybe that we're wanting to tell of ourselves, because color really is about your own color story and what you're trying to, the image you're creating and how it makes you feel. So do we all have color periods? I think that's a really interesting way of talking about how we can embrace color in our lives at different times to help us emotionally. I mean, I touched on that about wearing the darker colors. I think that we all choose to wear certain colors at a certain time to help us through. But if you know what your color palette is, even if you morph into those colors that perhaps don't really resonate with you and suit you, that there is going to be that element of maybe I can combine those colors that I know are really good for me, as well as those maybe that aren't so good, and I'm still going to keep that energy, and I'm still going to keep my skin looking healthy and youthful, and the whites of the eyes are still going to look sparkly. So you've still got that going on. I think that's kind of important. Well, actually, I'm kind of like you. I love orange, and you've got a great shade of orange on tonight. Orange is my happy place. And I gravitate towards it. It's the color that I get complimented in the most. I don't think we're very good at compliments as human beings. And I still find it, sometimes I find it really overwhelming, but people will say to me, oh, have you been on holiday? You look really well. And, that's a real compliment in itself for someone to say, gosh, you look healthy and well. Wearing orange kind of makes me smile when I see myself in it. I feel like I'm in my happy place. But equally, there are times, when I need to calm myself down, because I am a true spring, but I have a very strong autumn influence in my personality, which makes me very driven, and I get very overexcited about things and love to take on new projects. So I have to calm myself down as well and not get too overexcited and burn myself out. I had ME in my 20s and I burnt myself out. So I am on that kind of place where I know I can get too stimulated. So I think the balance is really important, but I recognize that in my personality, I have these two things combining, and in my colors, I'm much better in the khaki greens and the chocolate browns than I am ever going to be in black. And even in some of the, navy sometimes is not as good for me, as certainly some of the autumn colors as my secondaries, my influences that I embrace. And in the book, I go quite deeply into personality. And if you have personality combinations, how within your palette, so for instance, here is the spring palette that I am, if you had someone like myself that had a very strong autumn influence, my colors are going to be on the hotter and the warmer side down this end of the palette. And if you had someone who was perhaps had quite a lot of the summer or in their personality, so more of the introvert, the diplomat, the creator, then probably on the spring side, you'd be more into these lovely, the cooler shades of the blues and the pinks and the greens and the purples in particular. So that's going to be someone else who is also a spring, but has a very different personality type to me. So that's my zone that's happy. And I also like the very lime greens. And someone else on the spring zone that has another influence that's more introverted will favor this side. So this is where color becomes so personal. But certainly I know that my bright colors will help me when I'm teaching and when I'm talking and presenting, which I enjoy doing about color. And then I come home and I get into my cooler zone, which is the calmer greens and the calmer blues. So I find color very exciting in that I can mindfully think about who I'm seeing. Do I need to stimulate people? Do I need to keep them awake? Do I need to create that passion and for people to really get that about me? So I think about who I'm talking to and the message that I'm giving and what do I need. If I'm going into a corporate company, I'm going to think about, wearing probably navy and then one of my brighter colors, because that's my personality. But equally, I know I've probably got to be more corporate and more traditional. So I think it's about being mindful about who you're seeing and the projection that you're having on those people. Interesting question, because I worked for a company a couple of years ago, a brand, and they participated in a survey in London and I think it was Milan, I can't remember, it was a couple of European cities, about how people reacted to color, how conscious people were, the colors, their favorite colors, how color affected them in their world, did they notice color? And one of the things that came through was, certainly on the digital platform that you're talking about, on social media and on Instagram, which were the posts that made people stop and like them the quickest. And they were the bright colors. They were those colors that hit our eyes the first, the brighter ones, people would like them. So I thought that was really interesting. And I'm not we're all different. So I'm not saying that's across the board, but as the survey went, it was quite an interesting one because I haven't done another one since then or been part of it. But I found it really interesting that that's what catches our eyes. And we're all so, everything now is so quick, isn't it? It's like we want instant gratification. So if you want that instant hit, I certainly know on Instagram that if I wear yellow, bright orange, then I'm going to get more of the kind of like, wow, amazing color. Because again, it's that hit on the eyes of what happens and that instant thing. But I think it comes down to each individual's personality and what they're trying, the message that they are giving out to people. So how you change the filters, how you change your look. This dopamine dressing has become a massive thing, particularly on Instagram, about dressing is all about, your personality, how you feel, the dopamine effect of when you wear colors, do they make you feel happy? Certainly the dopamine thing started with not just color, but actually the styles of what you were wearing and how you were dressing yourself to feel good. And color to me is all about that. It's about this projection. What are we saying? It's, if you think about so much of what's going on Instagram, it's about personal branding. So how do you want other people to see you? And I think what's really interesting, of course, is that because we can change things so much, who are we really? Who's the real us? Because we have that ability digitally to make everything so different. I have a slight issue with, the real projection of who we are. But I think if we use it wisely and for good, then we can use color to tell our own story in how we want that to be seen. And certain days it might be a different look altogether. But that is, again, I think it is the world we're going into. I think you're absolutely right. But to use color mindfully, I think that's the most powerful message, that each of us can take a responsibility for what we're projecting. I think, that's such a great way to talk about color, because, when we read, when we see a color and we have a color association, you're so right. I mean, Farron Ball are particularly brilliant at it. They come up with a different shade, and you'll go into your house and say, this is mint green over here. This is peppermint. This is, they come up with the most incredible names, cerulean, that, and aqua, and the poppies, as you said. And, even to the extent of the Baker Miller pink, I will always associate that with that particular bubblegum color, because it's gone into my memory that is the shade of pink that helped calm everybody down very quickly. And it's that bubblegum pink, Barbie pink, so it's an extraordinary, royal blue when we think about the Queen. And I just love her use of color. It's so powerful. But royal blue, you just automatically associate that royal color with that sense you've got that shade of blue in your head. So it's a very powerful way to associate with colors. And I think that there are so many different colors on, if you look just at a Pantone book of different colors, and it's mind-blowing, actually. I mean, I just picked a few out in my book, because you're right, when you think of crimson, you think, whoa, really bright. When you think of poppy, you immediately think of the flower. So you've got that color, you've got that sense of brightness in the poppy. Burgundy, instantly you've got that shade that's dark. Of course, when you start going off and calling things different colors, they become far more flamboyant. Ultraviolet, for instance, I mean, I love that. It's such a ultraviolet. We kind of think of that really strong purple. And every year there is a color of the year from Pantone. And, it's really important in how it guides us through, for that year, the zeitgeist for the fashion and for interior design. And we're kind of led by that, by the psychological meaning that the colors have, and the names that we remember. Living coral, for instance, as that incredible warmth that we had that year, and it was ultraviolet. And then we had the rose quartz mixed with the blues. It kind of has that color association that sticks in our minds. So we go out looking for that, and we associate color with that. So long may that live, because it creates it creates those color sensations for us, I think, that become really, really important in our world. Yeah, particularly in springtime, I think you kind of see all the colors that come out and you instantly start thinking about all the different, you know, extraordinary shades of, you know, the limes, the fresh, the leaf, the different shades that I can associate just by looking outside the window now and seeing so many different variants makes color a very exciting place to be, I think. I've talked more about green and pink this year than any other colors. And even though the color of the year is actually a bluey purple, I have found that green, certainly the explosion of Wordle, for those of you who've heard of Wordle, I was rung up by Radio 4 and said, could you come on the show and talk about Wordle green and how it's exploding in the world of fashion, how suddenly all the celebrities and all the royal family are all suddenly wearing this winning shade of green. What does it mean? And it's like, isn't that extraordinary that we've suddenly associated Wordle green as the winning shade, that we are all suddenly wearing variants of this color. So it's like a trend. That to me was like one of the really important trends that came out in March. Who knew that was going to happen? Well, it literally kind of exploded. So, you know, and it came from a game. So can we really predict what's suddenly going to happen and how that shade of color, that when you hit on it and you win it, how when you found that you've won putting those words together, that incredible sense of instant happiness, that instant, yes, I did it, with a shade of green. So, you know, that shade of green is going to stay with people who are playing Wordle, you know, all the time and get that excitement from winning. I actually did a job recently with Swarovski, and they have, you know, those who don't know, changed all their interiors of all their shops worldwide into colors, and their flagship store in Oxford Street is now entirely green. And I was asked to go in and do a color talk and do analysis on their clients, and it was the most fabulous experience. I mean, literally the store is entirely green, all the walls, the displays, this incredible, vibrant, fresh shade of green, and being in it for an entire evening was so uplifting and felt so great. And all their different, obviously the sparkles and the stones, the crystals, the jewelry, it really helped because their new range is all in pinks and blues and yellows, just completely fabulous. But it was a really interesting thing to be so incredibly engulfed by beautiful green. And yeah, it is that sense of freshness. And maybe because we've been in such a stale zone for the last couple of years, this freshness on a vibrational level is very important to us. Bringing green in and surrounding ourselves in it, wearing it, embracing it, it's quite kind of important. So I see green and I see pink. It's another big color I've talked about this year. And I see pink as the color of love, compassion, kindness, nurturing. And in its hotter shades, it's a fun-loving color. So I think just wearing green in itself is very empowering. Pink in itself is very empowering. And of course, the two colors together, if you go on Instagram, you'll see more combining with pink and green, I think, than any other combination I've seen this year as well in fashion. People are really embracing pink and green in different shades to suit them. And I really love that. It really works together. And I think that balance of harmonizing green and the compassion and love and nurturing of pink coming together, what a great combination for this year. And who knew that was going to happen? Because yeah, it's been two very powerful colors for me, certainly as a consultant, to have been talking about and really embracing, because I think that's really great. So I couldn't have predicted that. Pantone predict it. They get their colors out there and we all get led by them, which is great. But certainly I know when I'm being led to talk about colors more certainly by the media, and I see people wearing them and I see what's going on and why people are doing it, and to be asked to go and talk in an entirely green store, yeah, that's a really new thing for me. And it was really exciting. And I thought, wow, you know, this is where we're going. People are really starting to think that being surrounded by colors can have an impact, and a really positive one. So it's a great way to end, really, isn't it? Well, the app is from the book, so you have to buy the book. And as I said at the beginning, it is literally just after the contents, you get your colour prescription in the box. That will give you the link to the website to have a look at the colours that are there, just to give you an idea of the images that belong to you. And then if you'd like to download the app, it's at the bottom of the page of each season. So you have the opportunity, you don't have to do it, but you have the opportunity to do that if you would like to. You can find me at what is the link? Well, you have to buy the book. That's the thing, you see. www.colourconsultancy.co.uk is my website, and you can read more there about colour psychology, colour analysis, the book is actually currently being sold on Amazon. It went to #1 bestseller on Monday night. Can't believe it's a best-selling book, but just so thrilled. It's also available at Waterstones and Foyles, all major bookstores, which is also great. You can go to the link from my website that will take you straight to Amazon if you want to buy it online. The courses that we just mentioned there, I am head of colour at the London College of Style, and we do an amazing colour course for creatives that is now globally accredited, for which offers a diploma at the end of it. And it's a very exciting course with 9 modules that we run 4 times a year. The next one is September. Teaches you how to colour analyse with drapes, teaches you all about the history of colour, the theory, putting all the colours warm and cool, how to analyse yourself properly, how to then embrace the colour psychology, how to set your own businesses up. And then we have a fabulous module with the Kettlewell Colours, who are the one-stop colour shop, about how to shop well in colour. And you can use that in your worlds as in fashion, in interiors, just for yourself and your family. But it's an incredible deep dive into colour if you want to qualify and get a diploma in colour. So that is available at the London College of Style, and I pop in and do a few lives on that, and I'm in a few modules, and I have an amazing colour team who work with me, very experienced colour tutors who are fabulous. So that is how, if you feel that you love colour from reading the book, would like to get involved and qualified, that is how you can do it. I hope everybody really enjoys the book and loves it. It was my aim to help as many people as I could, even in a really small way. Then I kind of felt like I'd done a good job. Colour is therapy, and if anyone can harness a bit of that for themselves and feel a bit better, maybe from day to day, and give themselves that hit of happiness and joy from colours, then I've done a good job. So thank you very much for having me. It's been a complete pleasure.